Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
There's a fascinating midrash. The midrash tells us that the first letter in the Torah is the letter base, Bereshis. The second letter of the Hebrew alphabet, the letter base. And when Hashem created the world, Bereshis bara Elokim es hashemaim v'sa'aretz, the beginning of Hashem's creating of heaven and earth, and he started the Torah with the letter base. The letter Aleph was affronted. The letter Aleph felt bad. The letter Aleph floated up before the heavenly throne, and he said to the Holy One, blessed be he, please, why do you begin the Torah with the letter base? I'm the first letter. You should begin with me. And the Midrash tells us that Hashem placated the Aleph, and he said to him, don't worry, it's true. We will begin the Torah and the creation of heaven and earth with the letter base. But you will be the first letter with which the Torah will be given. Anochi Hashem Elokecha. The purpose of the world, the creation of the world, is for the climatic event at Sinai, of the giving of the Torah, so that the world can realize its mission. And there, you will be the first letter, Anochi Hashem Elokecha. Now this midrash sounds like to us, like a folksy parable of sorts. Letters, really, do they float up, and do they talk, and do they communicate? And what's the significance? Big deal. You know, you're beginning with the base, you're beginning with an Aleph. Who cares, and so what? Well, we'll try and explain it a little bit. There's a very important ceremony, the highlight of the entire year in the Beis HaMikdash. Does anybody know what the culmination of the entire cycle of festivals, the celebration in the Beis HaMikdash that was the source of the greatest joy? Anybody know what it was? Simchas Beis HaSheva. Simchas Beis HaSheva. Well, the Simchas Torah really was appended afterwards to the Shmini Atzeres, but it's certainly the Simchas Beis HaSheva. We talked a little bit about it yesterday. We talked about the outpouring of joy, the nirvana that the Jewish people experienced in the Jerusalem of yesteryear when the Beis HaMikdash was standing, where millions and millions of Jews converged upon that small little square couple of miles, and they were in a state of total ecstasy. No man ever complained about where he was sleeping and what he was eating. So much so that the Talmud tells us that during the Sukkot festival, the Simchas Beis HaSheva, the joy of the Simchas Beis HaSheva, the joy on Sukkot of the water libation, the highlight of the whole year, where they poured water on the Mizbeach, was so great that the people didn't sleep. We didn't give sleep to our eyes. Now the Talmud asks, you can't function for more than 3 days without sleep. It's impossible. We're created in a manner that we have to regenerate our batteries. We're all Teslas. We're nice, we're perfect machines. But if we don't plug in, we can get a supercharge. But if we don't plug in, we're useless. So the Gemara says, well, we did sleep. We put our head on the shoulder of the fellow that was in front of us. All the Jews were assembled in the temple courtyard, and an entire night the festivities reigned. Do you know, today millions throng upon Times Square to see the ball drop. Millions want to see the Macy's fireworks display on July the 4th, and everybody's looking to try and get a prime spot, see this incredible, dazzling display of fireworks. Well, how long does the whole thing take? Not that long. But they want to be able to get a view. If they can't see it, what's the use? Well, the Talmud teaches us that millions, lahavdil, elef avdolas, thronged to the temple courtyard. each night of Sukkot. And there, only the greatest of the Jewish people played and did acrobatic feats, superhuman Olympic feats. Levi, the Gemara says, danced on his thumbs. He balanced himself on his thumbs. Someone tried it. One of the great Amoraim tried it, but they weren't yet ready and worthy and on that level to be able to function in such a supernatural fashion, and they broke their thumb. The Gemara says some of them would juggle 8 balls. They would do wonderful feats to give expression to the overflow of joy that they experienced. Not everybody could see. It doesn't matter. They were in a state of total joy. And the Jewish people assembled there not for an hour, not for 2 hours, not for a 45-minute display of theatrics and comedy, lahavdil elef havdalos. An entire night. They couldn't sleep. They were so excited. And the Gemara says, "Mi shelo ra'a simchas beis hasheva." Anybody who didn't see the joy of the simchas beis hasheva, lo ra'a simcha miyamav, has never seen joy in their life. You think you've seen joy? You think you've seen happiness? It's not to be found, not on the screen, not in any nightclubs, not in any joyous festivities that we have. The real joy was found there in the Beis HaMikdash during the Simchas Beis HaShe'eva. And the Chazal say they're so careful and select with their words. They're not given to just exaggerations. If they say that someone who didn't see the joy of the Simchas Beis HaShe'eva never saw joy in their life, the definition of joy, the source of joy was found right there. What is true joy? You know, we have joy. We can get excited. We can get high. We can pop an ecstasy pill. But it's not joy. It's stimulated joy. It's saccharine joy. Joy, absolute joy, flows from the fusion of body and soul. The totality, the experience of total connectivity within and without. That joy was only experienced at the conclusion of the festival cycle, the conclusion of the year, after the Jews had been cleansed from all their sins, been detoxed. They were freshly born. They'd taken the sukkah, the lulav, the esrog, the dalad minim, and there they were in the Beis HaMikdash congregating and experiencing absolute joy. V'yisa'ach sameach. During the 7 days of Sukkot, you shall be pure. You shall experience pure joy. Gosh, we all want to live it up. We all want to experience joy. We all want to be happy. Today, you know, your parents say, some parents say, at least in the world at large, not Jewish parents, because Jewish parents want much more from their children. But in the world at large, as long as you're happy, you can choose any lifestyle you want, you can do whatever you want, just be happy. Being happy seems to be the be-all, is-all, and end-all of everything. What does it say? What's enshrined in the Constitution? And the pursuit of happiness. Because the pursuit, happiness is always we're in pursuit. We can never really arrive at happiness. Because when we arrive, it's so fascinating. The body, in joy and happiness, can only experience for a short while. The body then craves for more. The body is dissatisfied. You eat ice cream. My favorite ice cream. Creamy pecan coffee ice cream. Rich, delightful, Belgian chocolate sprinkled on top, with fresh nuts and a crispy cone. That is Olam Hazard defined. Now, how many could I have?
2, 3, before you go.
After 2, I'm sickly. You can buy here in Le Chocolate. They have a wonderful chocolate store, really good chocolate store there. He makes really good ice cream. And he can put on top the best chocolate. It's not cheap, by the way, but it's okay. It's okay. We'll indulge once in a while. After half a cup, you're feeling sick already. Because the body can only absorb so much. Afterwards, the body retracts. The body can only experience so much. The body's a finite vessel. The body's finite. And once the body has indulged and absorbed it, the body always craves for more. Leman sfois harava es hatzmea. The pasuk tells us that when we engage, when we live profligately with abandon in the pursuit of happiness, the body always wants more and more and more and more. It's never happy. And we choose all kinds of crazy lifestyles and all kinds of nonsense that people run after. And they think that this is the way they're born and this is the way it's supposed to be, because they're so sick with indulgence. And they're still not happy. They're never happy. Not really happy. The saddest people there in Hollywood, the zone out. There was a famous, it was a big sports player, just committed suicide. What was his name? It was worth $30-40 million. He had a contract, like a crazy contract. He was an NFL player, I don't remember. It's all the time. It's just racked because everything is so on a whim and so impulsive and so much more like I need to be free, let me indulge. But it's not happiness, that's artificial stimulation. Real happiness, simcha, comes from the word shemocha, erased. Simcha, the Sfarim tell us the sin and the samach interchange, comes from the word somech, we're relying on God. We feel totally embraced. We don't have to experience any Jewish guilt. We're connected. We're one. We're one with our source. We're intimate with the divine. Body and soul are living in perfect harmony. That creates a state of joy. Real joy. They experience that joy on Sukkot each year. How did they give expression to it? Fascinating. The entire night was a preparation for a ritual that was going to take place after daybreak, when they brought the morning sacrifice, the Korban Tamid Shel Shachar. We talked about the Korban Tamid yesterday. The daily sacrifice, which was the fusion of the entire Jewish people together. The whole Churban, destruction of the temple, really is encapsulated in the loss of that sacrifice. That sacrifice was very significant. We'll go over that again. But during the end of the sacrifice, they would take a jug of water, a pail of water, and they would pour it on the Mizbeach. Poured the water on the altar. And that was the source of the entire great joyous ceremony. That was the culmination. Whoa! Just sounds so strange. Sounds like an Indian ritual. Sounds so foreign. What does it mean when you pour water on the altar? Don't get it. Why is that the highlight of the entire year? Now, the fascinating thing is, in this week's Torah portion, when we discuss the festivals and the sacrifices that are brought on the festivals, we have at the end of this week's Pasha the entire order of the festivals, and then we come to Sukkot. We go through Rosh Hashanah, and then Yom Kippur, and then Sukkot. And here, in Sukkot, when the Torah outlines all the sacrifices that were brought on Sukkot, special sacrifice that we bring for the nations of the world, 70 bulls, each day in descending order, and a lamb, a little lamb. The lamb symbolizes Eretz Yisrael, and the powerful bulls symbolize the nations of the world. Read it. And then we have a remez, just a hint to the libations, these water pourings of water on the Mizbech. And it's not written explicitly in the Torah. There's a remez, there's a hint. There's a hint. The word water is mayim. Mem, yud, mem. And it's alluded to with an extra, like a mem and a yud and a mem, a plural, v'niskehem, v'unsocheha, extra letters. I'll read you the way this Targum translates it, the way he translates it here. The sages note that the Torah twice departs from the singular form v'niska, its libations that was brought together with the sacrifice, that is used in the other passages. Once in this verse, where the word is spelled v'niskehem, with an extra mem, a superfluous mem. One where it's spelled v'niskeha, with an extra yud. And additionally, it says kamishpatam, instead of kamishpat, with an extra mem. So we have an extra mem, a yud, and a mem in the Torah. We have the word mayim there. And these three extra letters spell the word mayim, water. The water was poured into pipes at the top of the southwest corner of the altar every morning of Sukkot. This water drawing ceremony, known as Simchas Pesach Shoeva, celebration of the place of water drawing, was performed every evening, accompanied by intense night-long festivity, which was led by the most distinguished scholars and tzaddikim of Israel. The Talmud says that one who has never witnessed the joy, I love this article, he's really good. The Talmud says that one who has never witnessed the joy of the water drawing never saw a true celebration in their life. Many of the observances and prayers of Sukkot are associated with water and rain, including the water drawing, the prayer for rain, the four species, which are agricultural products. Okay, it goes in a little bit of a different cue over here, but we're going to explain it. Wow. This is such an important thing, this pouring of water, that it triggered such great joy, and yet the Torah only alludes to it with a mem and a yud and a mem. We've got to kind of put together the pieces and figure it out. Why is it so mysterious? Why is it only alluded to over here? Why is it so concealed and hidden? Can't the Torah just tell us, on Sukkot thou shalt be joyous, and the great joy is pour water on the altar, and with that you shall celebrate, around that you shall celebrate an entire night. The Torah just alludes to it. And yet, it was the culmination, the climax of the entire year. What does it mean? The Midrash tells us at the beginning of Bereshis that when God created the world, the first thing that he did, we read in Genesis, is that he created a separation between the upper worlds and the lower worlds. And that separation, the Torah tells us, Vayavdel, he separated bein Mayim, Lamoyim, between water and water. There is water in the upper worlds, and there's water in the lower worlds. Water seems to play a very significant role in creation. The first verses of the Torah tell us the beginning of God's creating of heaven and the earth was desolate and empty, and the Spirit of God rested on the waters. Now, what does that mean? If the Spirit of God rested on the waters, it couldn't have been desolate and empty. Something is there. Water symbolizes something. Water is an energy. Of course, we experience it down here in this world in its material form, H2O. And we understand water as a life-giving substance, water. But water in the upper worlds, each element in this world reflects a spiritual energy, and Mayim is the energy of change, the ability to change. Water transforms everything in this world. Water takes a seed that's rotted in the ground and transforms it into a tree, into a little sprout that becomes a tree. That from that tree, that apple tree, you can actually feed an entire planet. All 7 billion people could be fed from one tree. Take the seeds and plant them and plant them and plant them and plant them and plant them. You'd have food for everybody. Water is the energy and force that creates and changes. And water has an incredible capacity. It flows, it's viscous, it conforms to any vessel it's put into. There are upper waters and there are lower waters. And the Midrash tells us something that is so esoteric, it's so hidden and concealed at first blush, that we have to stop, pause, and try and understand this a little bit better. The Midrash tells us that when the waters were separated, the upper waters from the lower waters complained to God, the sea. All the waters of the world stands on a body of water. And the waters complained and said, God, Hashem, Anan ba'inan lemeheva kamamalka. We want to be up there in the heavens, right there, next to God. We don't want to be down here in the lower echelons of creation of the cosmos in the physical world. We want to be up there. And Hashem pacified the water and he said, don't worry. You'll be next to me in the heavenly throne. Because from you, they will take water and pour it on the altar on Sukkot. From you they will take salt and put it on the altar. With every sacrifice, al kol boncha takriv melech, salt from the sea is taken and put on every sacrifice. And therefore, he pacified the lower waters by telling them, don't worry, you will be in front of me. That is so funny, really. The waters complained. Yeah. See, this world is described in the Zohar as a world of piruda. It's called an alma, a world of piruda, of separation. In truth, in essence, we know that God, Hashem, is the force and the only existence that there is. But God creates a world of physical elements external to him that, for all intents and purposes, exude and exhibit an existence separate to him. We look at this table, piece of wood. I decide I'm going to shake the table. Nobody would think that this table has anything to do with God. It's an existence. It's a table, it's a piece of wood. Now we know, because we're privy, we have a Torah and a mitzvahs, and the Torah says, look at that piece of bread. Don't look at the bread. Ki lo ala lechem levado yichya ha'adam. It's not on the bread alone that man sustains himself. Ki al kol moitze pi Hashem yichya ha'adam. There's a spark of godliness and goodliness and God in everything that it animates it and gives it life. Today we've discovered that if you take an atom and you break it down and you magnify it 1,000,000 times under a microscope, and you can stagger the microscope to a fraction of a second, they've discovered something fascinating. The nucleus of the atom is pulsating. It's appearing and disappearing thousands of times every second. We understand that. God is creating this world every moment. Hamachadesh, we say in the morning prayers, Hamachadesh, God, you are renewing B'chal Yom all day long, Ma'aseh Bereshis. There's a new world, there's a recreation of the world, there's Genesis taking place before our eyes. Do you know how we experience Genesis? Guys, close your eyes, please. Let's breathe in. Breathe out. There we have it. Nothing dictates that the oxygen right now, that I should have the life energy to breathe in that oxygen that floods my lungs with life-giving breath that is transported into the bloodstream and through the heart and pumps life to my entire being. I'm being given the kiss of life every second. That's why the sages, the last word of Psalms of King David, the conclusion, the grand finale of his symphony of Tehillim is Kol Haneshama Tahalel Ka Haleluka. All the soul gives praise to you because it's all you, God, that's giving life every second. And the sages say, Al kol neshimu and neshima, on each breath, Tahalel ka, we shall praise you. That's why I believe, I haven't seen this, but I believe that's why at the end of the Hallelujahs, when we say that in our morning prayers, we actually say it twice. Kol anshama Tahalel ka Hallelujah. Kol anshama Tahalel ka Hallelujah. For each breath I will give praise to you. We want to understand and say it, living it in the light of the sages, that every moment is a celebration. Every moment is a new recreation. We're living under the guise of Mother Nature, the delusion, the optical mirage of Mother Nature. And so we think that everything just exists. We never give it a thought. But in truth, in this world of all different 132 elements, I think that's how many there are discovered today, probably more. Does anybody know? Biology 101, Physics 101, no. Anyway, whatever. Huh? 119? 120?
They just had a few more.
They just had a few more, right?
Like over a few more.
Thank you, Josh. There's probably 613 that they know. Anyway, they're all different elements, it's true. But they're really all bonded at the source, at the core. They're all being given life by Hashem. They just have an apparition. They just assume different properties and different dimensions and reflect different energies in this world because that's how God wills it. It's called a world of fragmentation. It's a world of disparate elements. Hashem creates this world exactly so. There's conflict. Bereshis bara Elokim, and the sages tell us in that first word of the Torah is everything. The Vilna Gaon, the great genius of Vilna, was able to find in the first pasuk and then in the first verse the entire Torah in the most deepest way. Bereshis, in the beginning. Barashis, he created everything in 6 days. Base ratios. There are two beginnings. God created that. Two beginnings. He created the world with the letter base. Base adds up to 2. 2 represents contrast, conflict, different elements. God created this world in a state of disunity, and our job is to bring it together. The letter Aleph complains to God, the force of unity and oneness. Aleph is Alufa Shalom, it's Hashem himself. You look at the Aleph, you have the Yud on top, the Yud on the bottom, and the Vav in the middle. It adds up to 26, that's Hashem. Hashem is the Alufa Shalom, he's the Prince, the King of the world. He's the oneness, the unity of this world. And the Aleph complains and says, God, we don't want a world that conceals your presence. We want a world that reveals me, the unity, the one of you in this world. And God says, no, that's going to be through the medium of Torah. Anochi Hashem Elokecha, I am Hashem, your God. The Jewish people will accept the Torah at Sinai and bring my unity to the world. And in the same vein, the waters were separated. Waters, the sages tell us, is a reflection of humankind. Kemayim haponim el ponim, kein lev ha'adam el ha'adam. See, men experience an element of conflict. When we see anybody walking in the room, what's our first instinct?
Who is it? Who is it? What is it?
Well, who is it? That's on one part of our brain is processing who's that. But really what we're processing is, same as an animal, friend or foe. Friend or foe. We're sniffing them like one dog sniffs another. But our senses are much more sophisticated than that. We can conceal it and delude ourselves, and we're thinking, but really deep down, This is a world of conflict. It's a world where we're separate. And our job is to place the body in override and recognize the unifying force of everything. Kamayim haponim haponim. Mayim is a palindrome. You read it to the back, you read it to the front. It's a reflection. You look in the water, you see a reflection of yourself. Like water faces man, so is the heart of man to man. We reflect one another. And therefore, because I sense certain weaknesses, I need to see those weaknesses in you. But the more I am wholesome, the more I can connect the first mem and the second mem, the more I'm living in a state of unity and connectivity, the more we're able to connect the two mems with the yud, with godliness. I have to connect here the upper world and the lower world. The upper world is where God resides, where his presence is revealed and connected. And then there's a lower world. And God separates between the upper worlds and the lower worlds. The water upstairs and the water downstairs. Vayavdel, there's a havdalah. But our job is to bring light into the darkness. You know, Shabbos is the place where we experience the unity and the oneness of God's creation. And when we leave Shabbos, we make havdalah, and we have to make it on candle with two wicks, two flames coming together. They're intertwined. Today we have very wonderful, nice Havdalah candles with all different wicks combining together into a flaming torch. But in essence, all we really need is two flames coming together. And it reflects exactly that. Because our job, when we make Havdalah, when we recognize that there's a Havdalah, ben Kodesh l'chol, ben Or l'choshech, ben Yisrael l'amim, our job is to sense in this world of conflict and diversity and separation, to recognize that it all comes together. There's a fire that bonds it all together. There's a godliness and a oneness that brings it all together. On Sukkot, the Jewish people experienced that. God placates the water, the lower waters, and he says, in the temple, in the Beis HaMikdash, don't worry, the Jewish people are going to realize the fulfillment of their life mission. They're going to sense and experience and bring together the unity between heaven and earth. And do you know how that's expressed? Through the medium of water being poured on the altar. There's no I. We're ready to sacrifice ourselves. There's no ego. The ego is the insulating material that creates separation. There's an I. Don't tell me what to do. I need my space. I need my privacy. I need my iPhone. I need my channels. I need my comfy bed and pillow. I need my creature comforts, whatever they may be. There's an I. But on Sukkot, it melted. At the culmination of the year, the absolute totality, we're like water. We're ready to pour ourselves on the Mizbech and conform to whatever vessel God places us in. We didn't have to see it. We want to be there. We're experiencing it. We are it. Do you know, in this world, that when joy is stimulated by an experience, an external experience, so we have to be there front row in front of the big screen. We want to be able to see it. Can you imagine if, you're there at the match, there's this big Super Bowl, and you're outside the stadium, everybody's cheering inside, but you can't hear, you can't see, you don't even have a radio to follow what's going on. What kind of experience is that? That feels like, the Jewish people all in the temple courtyard, they couldn't see the Jewish people, they couldn't see the great sages struggling at the front, I'm sure. I doubt it. But it wasn't about seeing it, it's about living it, it's about experiencing it. And when they experience that unity, there's no sleep. They're above nature. Everybody's giving their shoulder for everyone else to catnap on. is delirious with joy. Because there is unity, there's wholesomeness, there's connectivity. That's the purpose of it all. So the lower waters were placated because they knew that they have a connection to the Mizbech, the altar, and thereby in this world they are the medium through which the Jewish people can connect to the upper worlds. I'm just giving you an outline of some very deep ideas and thoughts and concepts that need to be processed and thought about. But our job is unity. The Beis Hamikdash, the Mizbech, when it was destroyed, in this period we mourn the destruction of the temple. And what we're really mourning is the disconnect between heaven and earth, which is reflected in the disconnect between one Jew and another. And when we're able to override the external differences and recognize the internal unifying bonding source and live in that dimension, everything is connected. And there's joy, there's happiness, there's connectivity, there's delight, there's oneness. That's why when we recognize it during the 3 weeks, we actually experience joy. Tisha B'Av is although it's a very somber day, it's also a joyous day. It's a Yom Moed. Because now we know the issue, we know the problem, and we can reconnect. It's like someone who's struggling with a diagnosis for an issue that they have, a medical issue, and finally they don't know what it is, what's bothering me. It's just like everyone thinks I'm crazy, but I just feel down here, such pain. And then they finally go to the doctor, and the doctor does a battery of tests, and the doctor says, oh, you have this ailment. It's rather rare, it's a pancreatic infection, but this is the name of the ailment, but with this and this antibiotics we'll be able to get rid of it. He hasn't yet taken the antibiotics. But he's already in a state of joy because he knows, I know the issue now. We talked about it a little bit yesterday, how hoidoya, thanks, is connected to the word being moda, admitting one's ailments and failings. It goes together. So we understand that these 3 weeks is because the waters are disconnected. The waters aren't flowing. There's a blockage. There's a blockage from upstairs to downstairs. There's a blockage from us, from one water to the other, from the mayim haponim al ponim, from the face, from one face to the other. The two mems are not connected properly with the yud. There's a disconnect. Our job during these 3 weeks is to work on that unity and connectivity and see how we can be more empathetic and understanding of those that are different from us, so we're connected at the core. And with that we'll rebuild the Beis Hamikdash brick by brick, so that we shall shortly soon celebrate together, dance together, Lifnei Mashiach Tzidkenu. Good Shabbos, everybody!
Good Shabbos.